What if the ground beneath your feet was not a resource to be conquered, but a living, breathing extension of your own skin? Could you survive in a world where the silence is so absolute that you can hear the rush of blood through your own veins? Is it possible that the people we call primitive possessed a sensory intelligence that we, in our digital insulation, have entirely lost? Why do we imagine their lives as a desperate, chaotic struggle against nature rather than a sophisticated rhythmic dance with it? Do you truly believe that progress is measured by the complexity of our tools or by the depth of our connection to the elements that sustain us? You stand at the edge of a limestone overhang in the high canyons of what will one day be called the American Southwest, and the first thing that shatters your expectation is the stillness. We are taught to expect a world of constant, violent movement, but here, in the shadow of the Great Basin, the prehistoric reality is one of profound, deliberate patience. The air is thin, sharp with the scent of dry sage and the mineral tang of sun-baked dust. You feel the grit against your teeth, a constant reminder of the geological clock ticking in milliseconds of erosion. As you move from the blinding glare of the afternoon sun into the mouth of the rock shelter, the temperature drops with a physical weight that mimics the feeling of stepping into water. It is not just a change in degrees, but a change in density. The light transitions from a golden, aggressive roar to a soft charcoal hum. Your pupils dilate, struggling to map a space where the walls are not flat surfaces, but undulating membranes of calcified history. You touch the rock, and it is unexpectedly cool, almost vibrant, holding the thermal memory of 1,000 winters. This is not a cave of darkness. It is a sanctuary of controlled perspective. You notice the way the smoke from a small, dying hearth clings to the ceiling, creating a localized atmosphere of cedar and ancient resin. This is the architecture of the first human interiority. Your ears begin to tune out the distant whistle of the canyon wind and start to pick up the micro-sounds of the shelter. The rhythmic scraping of a bone needle against a deer hide, the soft exhale of a child sleeping on a bed of woven yucca fibers, the crystalline snap of a dry twig being fed into the embers. You realize that for these people, survival was not an accident of luck, but a masterpiece of observation. Every shadow on the wall is a clock. Every vibration in the stone is a weather report. The fragility of their existence was not a weakness, but the very thing that made them hyper-aware, hyper-present, and deeply integrated into the landscape. You are not looking at a primitive past, but at a peak of human sensory refinement. This realization shifts something deep within you, stripping away the arrogance of the modern observer and replacing it with a quiet, grounding humility. You are an intruder in a space that has mastered the art of belonging. As you sink deeper into this environment, watching the way the amber light plays against the ochre stains on the rock, you begin to understand that the story of humanity isn't about escaping nature, but about finding the exact frequency at which we can resonate with it. Before we venture further into the heat of the hearth and the secrets of the Midnight Canyon, consider the depth of what is being uncovered here. Confira se já é inscrito neste canal, pois entender essas raízes é a única forma de verdadeiramente compreender para onde nossa espécie está caminhando em mundo cada vez mais desconectado da Terra. Your journey through the first 24 hours of human consciousness is only just beginning, and the silence of the stone has much more to reveal to those who know how to listen. The floor beneath you is composed of layers upon layers of ash, discarded flint flakes, and the organic remains of countless meals, a compressed record of survival that cushions your footsteps. There is a specific scent here, a mixture of old wood smoke, dried earth, and the faint, sweet musk of firs, an olfactory signature of a home that has stood for generations. You observe the way the light reflects off a small pool of water collected in a natural depression near the entrance, casting dancing ripples across the ceiling that look like spirits in motion. This interplay of light and shadow was their first cinema, their first window into the abstract. You feel the texture of a woven basket resting against the wall, its fibers tight and resilient, evidence of a geometry born from necessity and perfected by touch. The silence isn't empty, it is heavy with the presence of those who sat exactly where you are sitting, watching the same horizon, waiting for the same stars to emerge. You are breathing the same air, trapped in the same limestone lungs of the earth. The transition from the external world to this internal sanctum is a transition from the vastness of the landscape to the intimacy of the clan. Every object here has a purpose, every sound has a meaning, and every breath is a calculated act of endurance. You see the soot-stained roof, a testament to the thousands of fires that have warmed this space, creating a permanent shadow that defies the rising sun. The environment is one of extreme contrast, the harsh, unforgiving desert outside and the soft, protected womb of the shelter. This is where the human spirit first learned to distinguish between the world and the self. As the sun begins its slow descent toward the jagged teeth of the western mountains, the shadows in the shelter lengthen, stretching like long, dark fingers across the floor. The air becomes even more still, the dust motes dancing in the last beams of light like tiny golden ghosts. You find yourself moving slower, your heart rate sinking with the slow pulse of the canyon. There is no urgency here, only the inevitable progression of the day. You realize that your modern concept of time is useless in a place where hours are measured by the movement of a shadow across a specific crack in the wall. This is a deeper, more ancient rhythm, one that connects you to the very core of the biological experience. You are no longer just an observer, you are becoming part of the silence, a witness to the fundamental state of being that defined our ancestors for millennia. The rock shelter is not just a place of refuge, it is a crucible where the human mind was forged in the heat of necessity and the coolness of contemplation. You prepare yourself for the night, feeling the first true chill of the desert evening creeping toward the entrance. The warmth of the fire is no longer a luxury, but the central pillar of your reality. You are about to discover how the mastery of a single spark transformed the dark, cold void of the wilderness into a theater of human culture and connection. The journey into the prehistoric night is about to begin, and the stone walls are ready to whisper their oldest secrets to you. The transition from the fading twilight of the American Southwest into the absolute command of the night is not a gradual descent, but a total atmospheric shift that redefines your physical boundaries. As you sit within the limestone embrace of the shelter, the external world of the canyon dissolves into a void of obsidian and cold wind, leaving only this small, hollowed-out pocket of existence. You are now witnessing the most fundamental architecture known to our species, the architecture of heat. At the center of this stone room, the hearth begins to breathe. It is not merely a campfire, it is the biological sun of the clan, a focal point around which all social and physical movement orbits. You watch the initial flicker of a spark, a tiny, violent birth of light against the dry tinder of shredded cedar bark. The sound is a sharp, rhythmic tapping of wood against wood, a friction that translates kinetic energy into the primal potential of combustion. When the first thin ribbon of blue smoke curls toward the soot-stained ceiling, the air in the shelter changes instantly. The smell of burning resin fills your lungs, a scent that triggers a dormant, ancestral comfort deep within your nervous system. You feel the radiant heat begin to push back against the oppressive chill of the rock. This is the moment where the environment is no longer just a geological formation, but a curated space of survival. The light from the growing flames is orange, visceral and erratic, casting giant, distorted shadows that dance across the uneven walls like the restless spirits of the mountains. You observe how the inhabitants of this space organize their lives around this glowing core. There is a precise, functional geography here. Near the fire, the ground is swept clean, the earth packed hard by the weight of bodies seeking warmth. Further back, in the deeper recesses where the heat barely reaches, the air remains stagnant and freezing, a reminder of the thin line between life and the void. You touch the stone floor near the hearth and find it pulsing with a gentle, borrowed warmth, while just a few feet away, the rock is as cold as a glacier. This contrast is the defining tension of their existence. The struggle to maintain a microclimate of stability within a macro environment of chaos. You see the women leaning into the light, their hands moving with a fluid, mechanical grace as they process dried roots and seeds, the firelight illuminating the deep lines of experience on their faces. The men sit closer to the entrance, their eyes fixed on the darkness outside, their bodies acting as a living barrier between the hearth and the wilderness. Every movement is calculated to conserve energy and maximize the reach of the flame. You realize that the fire is not just a tool for cooking or warmth, it is a psychological anchor. In the darkness of the prehistoric night, the fire creates a sanctuary of visibility, a shared reality where stories are told without words, through the simple act of presence. The flicker of the flames reflects in your eyes, and for a moment, the thousands of years separating you from these people vanish. You are part of the same desperate, beautiful circle of warmth. This connection is so profound, so deeply etched into our DNA, that it transcends time itself. It makes you wonder about the invisible threads that bind us to those who came before, those who stared into these same embers and felt the same flicker of hope against the encroaching cold. Pause for a moment and let that sink in. If this vision of our shared ancestry touches something deep within your soul, leave a comment saying, "We are the fire that never went out," because feeling this link to the past is what truly makes us human. As the night deepens, the fire settles into a steady, rhythmic pulse of glowing coals. The architecture of survival is now complete. The shelter has become a pressurized vessel of human culture, held together by the thin, radiant skin of the fire's reach. You watch the way the light picks out the textures of the stone, the jagged edges of flint tools, the soft pile of furs, the intricate patterns of woven baskets. Each object is a victory over the scarcity of the desert. The organization of the space is not random, it is a map of social hierarchy and functional necessity. The storage of dry wood is kept in the driest corner, protected from the occasional dampness of the canyon walls. The sleeping areas are lined with thick layers of grass and hide, positioned to catch the residual heat of the stones long after the flames have died down. You feel the weight of the silence outside, a silence that would be terrifying if not for the crackle of the wood and the soft murmurs of the clan. This is the first laboratory of human interaction, the place where we learn to cooperate, to share, and to dream. The contrast between the flickering amber interior and the silent blue-black exterior creates a sense of profound isolation and intense belonging. You are in the heart of a fortress made of nothing but rock and will. The temperature outside has dropped below freezing, and you can hear the faint crystalline sound of the desert air tightening. But here, within the golden radius of the hearth, the air is thick with the smell of roasting meat and the hum of communal safety. The fire has transformed the limestone shelter into a home, a place where the harsh laws of nature are temporarily suspended by human ingenuity. You realize that our modern skyscrapers and heated homes are merely expanded versions of this original, flickering circle. The essence of our survival has not changed. We are still huddling around the light, pushing back the shadows of an indifferent universe. The fire begins to burn lower, the bright orange flames giving way to a deep, pulsating red. The shadows on the walls grow longer and softer, wrapping around the sleeping figures like a heavy blanket. You feel a sense of immense peace, a grounding reality that only the most basic elements can provide. The day's journey through the stone and the flame has stripped away the noise of the modern world, leaving you with the raw, vibrating core of the human experience. You are ready now to see how this internal stability translates into the external mastery of the land, as the first light of dawn begins to prepare its return to the high canyons. The architecture of the night has held firm, and the pulse of the earth is waiting for you in the chapters to come. As the first grey light of dawn spills over the jagged rim of the canyon, the internal warmth of the shelter meets the abrasive reality of the external world. You step out from the limestone overhang, and the transition is a shock to your system. The air is a thin, freezing liquid that fills your lungs with the sharpness of needles. This is the moment when the biological connection between the human body and the American landscape becomes a matter of mechanical precision. You are no longer a guest in the cave. You are a predator, a gatherer, and a technician of the Earth's raw materials. The pulse of the Earth is not a metaphor here. It is the rhythmic thud of a stone hammer against a core of obsidian, a sound that vibrates through your forearms and into your chest. You watch the process of napping, the deliberate mathematical fracturing of volcanic glass. Each flake that falls to the ground is a calculated subtraction, a search for the hidden geometry of a sharp edge. These tools are not primitive. They are the result of a profound understanding of mineral physics. You feel the weight of a finished projectile point in your palm. It is cold, slick, and impossibly light, yet its edge is sharper than any modern surgical steel. This is the bridge between human intent and the physical world. Your survival depends on this razor-thin margin of error. As you move through the scrub brush of the desert floor, your senses are heightened to a level of fidelity that modern life has cauterized. You track the movement of a mule deer, not just with your eyes, but with the soles of your feet, feeling the compression of the soil and the snap of dry juniper twigs. The environment is a dense network of signals. The way a bird takes flight 300 yards away is a data point. The direction of the wind against the fine hairs on your neck is a tactical constraint. You realize that the prehistoric human was not living in the wild. They were the nervous system of the wilderness itself. The hunt is a long, grueling exercise in persistence, a test of cardiovascular endurance and thermal regulation that defines our species. You feel the sweat cooling on your skin, the salt stinging your eyes, and the deep, hollow ache of a body pushed to its metabolic limit. When the kill is finally made, the atmosphere shifts from the tension of the chase to the visceral labor of processing. There is no waste in this economy of bone and sinew. You observe the systematic dismantling of the animal. The hide is stripped for clothing and shelter. The brains are saved for tanning. The long bones are cracked for the nutrient-dense marrow, and the tendons are carefully dried to become the high-tensile backing for a composite bow. The smell of copper-rich blood and warm fur dominates the air, a sensory overload that reinforces your place in the food chain. You are witnessing the transformation of life into utility. Every tool used in this process, the scrapers, the awls, the heavy pounding stones, is a functional extension of the human hand, crafted from the very ground you stand on. This is the ultimate recycling, a closed-loop system where the earth provides the material and the human mind provides the purpose. You see the women gathered near a cluster of prickly pear cactus, their hands protected by thick pads of deerskin as they harvest the fruit with rhythmic efficiency. They are mapping the seasonal bounty of the canyon, knowing exactly when the piñon nuts will drop and where the rarest medicinal herbs hide in the shadows of the boulders. This knowledge is a living library, passed down through touch and demonstration. The stability of the clan is built on this granular, intimate expertise. You begin to understand that the brutality of this life is balanced by a profound, almost spiritual grace. There is a deep satisfaction in the alignment of need and fulfillment, a clarity that comes from knowing exactly what is required to stay alive for another sunrise. The contrast between the abundance of the hunt and the looming threat of winter creates a constant driving energy. You are part of a machine that never stops moving, a cycle of harvest and preparation that binds you to the seasonal heartbeat of the continent. The sheer complexity of this existence is staggering, far removed from the simplistic caricatures of cavemen often portrayed in history books. You are seeing the birth of engineering, chemistry and ecology in their most honest forms. If this level of intricate detail and the raw reality of our ancestors' daily labor has changed the way you view the origins of our species, please take a moment to leave a like on this video, as it helps us bring more of these forgotten human stories to the surface. The afternoon sun begins to bake the canyon walls, and the light becomes a harsh, white glare that flattens the landscape. You return toward the shelter, your back heavy with the weight of the day's haul. The rhythmic sound of your footsteps on the gravel is the only thing breaking the vast, shimmering silence of the desert. You feel a strange sense of ownership over this terrain, not as a master, but as a participant. The stone tools hanging from your belt are more than just weapons. They are keys that unlock the potential of the environment. As you approach the cool shade of the overhang, the transition once again recalibrates your senses. The smell of the hearth fire reaches out to meet you, a beacon of domesticity in the vast, indifferent expanse of the Southwest. You have spent the day as a biological entity integrated into a geological landscape, and now you return to the social sanctuary of the fire. The tools are laid down, the hides are stretched, and the meat is hung to dry in the smoke. The pulse of the earth continues to beat, but for now it is synchronized with the quiet breathing of the camp. You prepare for the evening, knowing that the work of the day has secured the safety of the night. The connection you feel to the earth is no longer an abstract concept. It is etched into your muscles and stained into your skin. You are ready to explore the deeper, more intangible layers of this existence, the shadows of lineage and the social structures that turned a group of survivors into a lasting civilization. The sun is dipping low again, painting the cliffs in shades of violent crimson, and the next phase of the prehistoric cycle is about to unfold in the lengthening shadows of the canyon. The amber glow of the dying fire stretches your shadow against the limestone wall, where it mingles with the silhouettes of those who have occupied this canyon for 1,000 years. You are no longer just a biological entity or a technician of stone. You are a link in a fragile, unbroken chain of memory. The social architecture of the shelter is far more complex than the rock that contains it. You watch as an elder guides the small, clumsy hands of a child over the surface of a grinding stone, not through a lecture, but through a shared, tactile rhythm. This is the transmission of lineage, a silent data transfer where survival is encoded into muscle memory and oral tradition. Every gesture you see is a library of experience. The way a knot is tied in a yucca fiber or the specific tone of a warning call carries the weight of countless ancestors who learned these lessons through the brutal trial of error. You feel the density of the social fabric, a collective intelligence that acts as a secondary skin against the indifference of the American wilderness. Here, the individual does not exist in isolation. Your value is defined by your contribution to the metabolic whole. The fragility of this life is most apparent as the first scent of a coming winter descends from the high peaks. You can feel the change in the air, a metallic, predatory cold that threatens to snap the delicate threads of the clan's stability. A single injury, A failed hunt or a season of drought is not a personal tragedy, but a systemic risk. You observe the quiet intensity with which the group prepares, the communal effort to cache seeds and dry the last of the bison meat. There is no central authority, yet there is a perfect organic coordination born from a shared understanding of risk. This is the strength of the collective, a decentralized resilience that allows a physically vulnerable species to outlast the megafauna of the Pleistocene. You sit among them, feeling the warmth of their bodies and the low murmur of their voices, which serve as a sonic barrier against the howling wind outside. The language is not just for communication. It is a tool for mapping the cosmos and cementing the bonds of kinship. They share stories that turn the stars into landmarks and the rocks into ancestors, creating a mental landscape that is as real as the physical one. You realize that their greatest invention was not the spear or the fire, but the we. The ability to imagine themselves as part of a continuous, enduring story. This social cohesion is the only thing standing between the human spirit and the void of extinction. It's a profound realization that our modern world, with all its digital connectivity, often lacks this raw, existential interdependence. You are witnessing the blueprint of human society in its most honest and desperate form. The shadows on the wall are not just your ancestors, they are the architects of your own social instincts. If you feel that this glimpse into the deep roots of our collective strength is something the modern world needs to remember, please consider sharing this video with someone who values the hidden history of our species. The night grows colder, and the fire is reduced to a pulsating bed of coals that looks like a fallen galaxy. You feel the weight of the firs as the clan huddles closer, their breath visible in the dim light. In this moment, the distinction between the self and the group dissolves. You are part of the lineage, a witness to the enduring power of the human connection. The winter may be coming, and the shadows may be long, but the fire of the collective burns with a fierce, quiet defiance. You see the faces of the children, illuminated by the last embers, and you recognize the same spark of curiosity and resilience that still drives us today. Their survival was not a miracle. It was a choice made every single day through cooperation and love. The limestone shelter has held this secret for millennia, protecting the seed of our civilization through the darkest nights of the Ice Age. You are now prepared to move toward the final revelation, where the concrete reality of this survival elevates into a broader understanding of what it means to be a human being in a timeless landscape. The echoes of the canyon are calling, and the dawn of a new consciousness is waiting to be born from the shadows of the past. You feel a sense of profound responsibility as a bearer of this memory, a silent participant in a story that is still being written across the vast spans of time. The air in the shelter is thick with the scent of sleep and wood smoke, a peaceful contrast to the harsh, frozen world outside the overhang. You have seen the tools, the fire and the hunt, but now you have seen the soul of the group. This is the foundation upon which everything else was built, the invisible glue that turned a group of primates into the masters of a continent. The lineage is not just in the bones buried beneath the floor, it is in the way you now look at the person sitting next to you, recognizing the ancient necessity of our togetherness. As the shadows finally merge into the total darkness of the late night, you find yourself waiting for the light, not just for warmth, but for the continuation of the narrative that defines us all. The transition is almost complete, and the final chapter of this 24-hour cycle is ready to elevate your perspective from the floor of the canyon to the heights of human meaning. The pulse of the earth and the pulse of the lineage have become one, a singular vibration that resonates through the stone and into your very core. You are ready for the final echo. The final stars begin to dissolve into a bruised violet sky, and the 24-hour cycle of the prehistoric shelter reaches its spiritual zenith. You stand at the precipice of the alcove, watching the first direct ray of the American sun strike the opposite canyon wall with the precision of a celestial clock. This is the moment where the concrete struggle for calories and warmth elevates into something eternal. You turn back to the rock face behind you, and for the first time, you truly see the pictographs etched and painted into the living skin of the earth. These are not merely decorations or idle markings, they are the compressed frequency of human consciousness. You touch a handprint stenciled in red ochre, and the temperature of the stone feels like a pulse. This hand reached out from the void of the past to claim a place in the future. It is a scream against the silence of extinction, a declaration that, I was here, I felt this, and I belonged. You realize that the transition from the physical architecture of survival to the symbolic architecture of meaning is what defines us. The tools of flint and bone were the hardware of existence, but these marks on the wall are the software of the soul. The legacy of these first humans is not found in the ruins of their structures, but in the continuity of our shared drive to understand our place in the cosmos. As the modern world begins to wake up in the distant valleys beyond the canyon, with its humming grids and flickering screens, you feel the jarring contrast of our current insulation. We have traded the direct, sensory feedback of the limestone for the sterile comfort of the artificial, yet the biological echo remains. Your heart still beats with the same rhythm that accelerated during the Pleistocene hunt. Your eyes still seek the comfort of the hearth in the darkness of the night. The transition to modernity has changed the scale of our impact, but it has not altered the fundamental requirements of our spirit. We are still dwellers in the shelter, seeking safety, connection, and a way to leave a trace of our passage. The canyon walls have witnessed the rise and fall of empires that the inhabitants of this cave could never have imagined. Yet the stones do not distinguish between the ancient and the new. They hold the heat of the sun and the memory of the wind with an indifferent grace. You feel a profound sense of responsibility as you prepare to leave this sanctum. To walk away from the shelter is to carry the weight of this lineage back into a world that has largely forgotten the texture of the earth. The fragility you observed in the face of the winter is still with us, hidden beneath layers of technology and social complexity. We are still a collective species, bound by the same invisible threads of interdependence that kept the clan alive through the freezing canyon nights. The elevation of the human story from the dirt to the stars is a single, unbroken trajectory. As you take your final steps out of the shadow and into the full, blinding light of the morning, you are no longer the same observer who arrived at the threshold of silence. You have been recalibrated by the stone. The internal and the external have merged into a singular understanding of what it means to be alive on this planet. The journey through these 24 hours has been a descent into the raw materials of our humanity, a reminder that we are made of the same mineral and fire as the ancestors who first called this rock home. This realization is the eternal echo, a vibration that transcends the limitations of time and geography. It is the silent song of the American Southwest, a melody written in dust and light. If you have felt the resonance of this ancient story and wish to continue exploring the deep hidden layers of our human heritage, please make sure to subscribe to the channel so you do not miss our next journey into the past. Se você assistiu até aqui, é porque gostou desse caso. Deixe um comentário dizendo, eu assisti até aqui, para que eu possa te conhecer e saber quem realmente gosta das histórias aqui do canal. This simple act of engagement helps us keep these narratives alive and ensures that the fire of our shared history continues to burn for others to see. If the imagery of the prehistoric night and the strength of the first clans touched your heart, please leave a like on this video to support our work. And finally, if you believe that others should hear this echo from the canyon walls, please share this documentary with someone who appreciates the profound beauty of our origins. The sun is now high over the Great Basin, and the shadows of the shelter have retreated into the deep recesses of the rock, waiting for the next cycle, the next visitor, and the next heartbeat to fill the silence. You walk back toward the modern world, but a part of you remains here, pressed against the limestone, a ghost in the lineage of the Firebringers. The story of the first humans is not a closed book. It is an open landscape, and you are now part of its enduring map. The wind carries the scent of sage and the distant hum of the future, but in the stillness of your mind, the echo of the stone remains absolute. You have crossed the threshold, you have survived the night, and you have found your place in the eternal circle. The journey is complete, yet it is also just beginning, as every sunrise is a renewal of the ancient pact between the earth and the human spirit. You are the fire that never went out, carrying the light of 30,000 years into the challenges of the present day. The canyon stands silent, watching your departure, holding its secrets until the next shadow falls across its ancient, welcoming floor. Every breath you take is a tribute to the endurance of those who stood where you stand, and every step you take is a continuation of their original, defiant march toward the horizon. You are home.